digital clock snaps to zero, and the phone on the kitchen counter lights the room with a cold blue glow. An unknown number flashes, and a thin voice through static hisses. Do not answer after midnight. Before we go any further, I'll ask you for a favor. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment below this video with what time you listened to this story. She told herself it was a prank until the voice repeated, word for word, the exact childhood nickname only her mother used, and her skin crawled as if someone had breathed against her neck. The sound left a cold smear on her spine. She moved slow, careful because the quiet felt like a presence. The house at midnight was a skeleton of light, refrigerator hum, a street lamp leaking through blinds, the moon a white coin in the window. Her thumb hovered over the handset, though the landline was nothing but a rectangle on the counter, old and beige. She had always liked the hazard of numbers that do not belong. But this was different. Over the next week, the calls came like clockwork. Calls before midnight felt like empty shells. Dial tone, a thin fizz, as if the line had been dragged across gravel, and then nothing. Often they ended with the soft click of a remote mouth closing. She started keeping a notebook, awkward and neat, and wrote times, numbers, weather, her own mood. There was a geometry to it, a rhythm that was almost smug in its consistency. But anything that brushed the witching hour was different. At 23:59, the line was a bottle with nothing in it. At 0, the same number sounded like a person stepping into a room. The voice that came at midnight wore the small shapes of people she trusted, a neighbor's dry correction, a friend's lazy cadence, even a lover's half-sentence. It learned their pauses, the way they said certain consonants. It learned to laugh in the narrow places she recognized from childhood parties, small laughs like coin taps. It knew the private joke she had shared with Mara on a porch in sophomore year, the offhand line about a lost goldfish, and it used it like a key. Voicemails arrived with the slow certainty of tides. In the morning, she would press play and find a message that sounded like someone leaning on the kitchen counter next to her, whispering across a short distance. The words were ordinary. Can't wait to see you. Are you awake? Don't forget the keys. But threaded through the ordinary were stitches that belonged only to her. A mispronounced surname, a laugh that started with a snort, a sigh exactly as her brother did when he pretended to sleep. At the end, often, there would be a small sound, her own laugh, recorded and set down like an echo the house hummed. The refrigerator kept time with its own indifferent throb. The air tasted like coins and iron, sharp and close, a metallic tang that crawled up the back of her tongue. Her hands trembled with a small, animal clench. She reached, found the cord, and pulled. Plastic gave with a sigh. The landline was dead, its screen dark, but the warmth of those messages lingered on her skin like breath. She unplugged the modem, the router, the archaic cordless base, as if cutting wires could cut thought. She stuffed devices into her pockets: phone, 2 USB sticks, a cheap tablet with a cracked corner. They felt heavy, a small cache of modern skin. She considered burning them, burning the house, but that was an answer she did not trust. Instead, she began to test the rule. Careful, as if she were prodding a sleeping animal, she waited for a night when the neighbors' TVS were loud and the sky looked like wet slate. The wind made the porch boards groan, and it felt safer some wrong way. Safer because the storm would be a witness or an accomplice. At 23:57, she dialed a number that was only curiosity, a dead end from 2 years ago. The line clicked. She listened to breath and to rain. At 0, the voice came. It spoke softly, and every sound in the house seemed to pile up behind it. For a heartbeat, she thought it was the neighbor, or a wrong connection, or the trick of sleep. Then, a second layer slotted into place, perfectly familiar and wrong. Her own voice, bit and hollow, answering from the hallway phone that still sat on the entry table. "I let them in," it said, with the soft cadence she used when she apologized for trivial things. She did not move. The hairs on the back of her neck rose like frost. Her heart hammered against ribs like a trapped bird. She glanced at the phone in her hand, the cheap slab she had intended to keep as a record. She did not make an outgoing call, but the call log was uncompromisingly precise. At 5, an outgoing call appeared from her own number, stamped and blindingly ordinary, as if bureaucracy were the thing that decided reality. The handset on the table was cold. Her finger left a sweat print on its plastic. She played back the call recording and found herself saying nothing, listening to an invisible version of herself answer a door that had not been opened. The tape was thin with hallway acoustics. She could hear the tiny scrape of shoe on wood, the apartment settling. Under it, the voice was patient, bored, like someone who had waited for a long queue to enter. She tried to imagine logistics. How could sound move back in time? How could a voicemail know to place a laugh at the end to make her lower her guard? The laugh was the small thing that undid her. It was clean and familiar, the curl of a private memory caught and looped. She heard herself breathe, and then the message ended as if someone had closed a mouth with a finger. She sat frozen while the household noise returned. The fridge throbbed, wind scored gutters. Distant dogs barked like ceremonial punctuation. Her palms were damp. She kept replaying the 4 words because they were impossible and intimate at once. Who had opened a door? Who had stepped in? She called her brother awake, used the old euphemism of check the door, and he laughed, made a joke about mice, agreed to come if he was worried. He lived 2 blocks away, honest and loud, and his voice on the line had the friction of a real person. She hung up, and the silence afterward was heavy with listening. She waited through the night like a person holding their breath. She did not sleep in the conventional way. Curled and small, she prowled her rooms, a pale animal checking thresholds, peering at closets and beneath beds. The landline sat like a relic in the dark, and even unplugged, it felt like a mouth that could shape words. Every incoming number made her shoulders go rigid. She kept a small ritual: lights off, windows latched, doors double bolted. She tested each lock like an electrician, checking a failing fuse. Her brother did drop by at 3 a.m., boots loud on the porch, his shadow longer than him under the porch light. They walked the house together, her pointing at the hallway phone, him saying practical things. Call the landlord, change your passwords. He left with a hug that pressed something hard and concrete into her ribs. The hour felt exposed daylight was a small kind of amnesty, she thought in lists. 1. Calls before midnight, empty, fizz, unfinished. 2. Calls at or after midnight, voice, mimicry, private jokes, voicemail with her laugh. 3. The world could be rewritten in 5 seconds by a log. She ran scenarios. She imagined burglars, conmen, sound engineers, pranksters, with too much time and access. None of those explanations fit the tender accuracy of the recordings. Whoever or whatever made them had listened to the soft corners of her life. It copied not only words, but patterns. The way she cleared her throat before a confession, the small pause that came before a joke. It knew to put the laugh at the end, where doubt is most dangerous. She began to plan for the possibility that the rule was less about calls and more about permission. If sound could make a door into being, then there would be a way to refuse. But refusal is a quiet thing, and the midnight voice had already been practicing patience. She learned to speak around it, like someone diffusing a bomb with a teaspoon. She turned down the volume on the world and sat with the list, waiting to see if the pattern would repeat or snap like delicate glass. Outside, thunder rolled away slowly. Inside, she held her breath as the clock rolled toward 0.